I would like to discuss about how do we exit out of the karma wheel, enter into a space of nirvana, which the Buddhists call a path of enlightenment, and moving it a step further, how do we recognize that we are a cosmic being and then begin to experience the cosmic possibilities for our existence? So I'm talking about mastering or graduating, we'll say, this earth in all the 7 dimensions of this earth and all the realms upon realms that you can possibly find on planet Earth. How do we master, how do we graduate that and step into, let's say we want to take on the shape of a Pleiadian, take on the shape of a Lyran, take on the shape of a Draconian, maybe take on the shape of a light being, a celestial being that maybe is not bound to physical whatsoever. How do we do that? We as human beings are primarily in this 2-dimension, 3rd dimension, right? But there are human beings, as we would think of the Buddha, who has entered into a 5th dimension and is maybe even entered into a 7th dimension. But Earth only has the 7 dimensions in which humanity has mastered, right? We know in Pleiades that there are higher dimensions, higher dimensional beings who are 8th dimensional, 9th dimensional, maybe 22 dimensional. When we get into more like light being, celestial being that is not bound whatsoever to like physical, that's pure mastery over the energy, right? That they have no shape, they're shapeless. So as we move forward into our Aquarian age, there's going to be a lot more of discussion about like, not only extraterrestrials, but like interdimensional beings, transdimensional beings, intergalactic, interstellar, all of these sort of terms to describe the kind of movement within the cosmos that we as human beings are now just becoming more aware of than we have ever on this planet, particularly in this this patriarchal age, okay? Before that, when we think about, the Buddha as sort of being similar to like a shaman, as they're doing the same thing. They're teaching about how to travel, right? How to travel the mind, right? And how to reach a certain, vibration so that you're free of the karma wheel, right? The same thing that Buddha's done is the same thing that the shamans do when it comes to helping people liberate themselves in their mind so that they can have a full awareness of their habits, their decisions, their patterns, so that they can break through any of these sort of karmic cycles that have a huge cause and effect that may keep us unfulfilled spiritually. So how do we like, okay, there's realms upon realms, there's just seeming infinite realms, right? Because as humans expand their imagination and expand their consciousness, humans can create new realms. So if there is many humans who are meditating and creating new realms through their intention and through their awareness and through their ability to shape reality, there could be infinite possibilities of realms. But dimensions is different. It's about the whole baseline frequency upgrading and upholding of a vibrational resonance collectively. And we've only been able to uphold on our planet, in the many civilizations that we've had thus far, The highest is the seventh dimensional vibrational resonance that we've been able to hold, sort of contain, right? That doesn't mean that, the Buddhas haven't meditated upon like the 10th dimension. It's just as humans, we've only been able to contain the highest of it, which is the seventh dimension. I don't think we've been able to contain an eighth dimensional. We can experience it, of course. We can kind of, like a shaman, sort of meditate and go into that space and time. But to hold it here on planet Earth as a sort of a contained, consolidated, sort of concise reality that is within a civilization and a society, I don't think we've gotten there. So so with Buddhism, right, we think about nirvana, right? A pathway of enlightenment helps you to get out of the karma wheel, okay? When we become more aware of our cause and effect, when we start to recognize all these projections or non-realities that maybe we're creating and recreating and sort of continuing to do on this earth, and we step more into reality, or we step more into the releasing of the attachments, right? The sort of embracing death, right? Not as we're waiting for it, but we're understanding that we have a limited time on this planet Earth, right, in our physical body, and that it is absolutely important that we work on the Dharma, right? The Dharma. And when I meditate upon how do we, I'm a human, I'm from Earth, and let's say that some seed in me, maybe it's through meditation, maybe it's through like a community, right, that I would like to, expand beyond this earth, right, and have not a birth, right, not a rebirth on Earth, but let's say I want to create a whole new avatar that's not even a part of the human species, an avatar that's like a Pleiadian or an Arcturian, so I can have that experience within my sort of Asachic record, as in like not just wisdom of Earth, right? Because it takes like almost so much time to have wisdom on Earth, right? Going through all these realms and dimensions, I would like to have more of a wisdom, maybe that is somewhat in a sort of a connection to like Pleiades or Arcturus. Because as we do sort of, master the realms and the dimensions, I do feel that we start to be introduced to even different realms like possibilities for realms that cannot be experienced on Earth, right? Like, realms that like on Pleiades that could deal with like 8th dimensional, 11th dimensional type of vibrational resonance that we as humanity and in humanity and civilization on this earth cannot have that currently as it is. Maybe, thousands of years from now, if we can kind of jump into a timeline in a rebirth cycle where we're like 5,000 years in the future, but still, the whole kind of human karma wheel will be the same, and the whole path of enlightenment in many ways will be the same, right? But let's say if we're kind of have a rebirth on Pleiades or Arcturus, there's a whole kind of different experience that is completely original to that planetary system that we can kind of connect to on Earth, because everything is like interconnected and sort of weaving into one big sort of cosmic symphony. But it is going to be original to Pleiades or to Arcturus, while our Earth has a unique signature that's unique to us. So, being a human being, we're carrying that unique signature that Earth sort of broadcasts out into the cosmos. As the same thing, Pleiades or Arcturus, Sirius, and these, kind of, cosmic beings on those areas, in these regions, have their own sort of signature they broadcast into the cosmos that is going to be unique, right? So their possibilities of realms and and their dimensions could be interweaving within ours, but could be absolutely vastly different, right? It's like you are born and raised in Germany, and you have your own culture, your own history in Germany, and then you go to Japan, right? It may seem like a completely different species of human, right? Because the culture in Japan, it offers you different possibilities that you could not find in Germany. So sometimes people travel from like Germany to like Japan, or Japan to Ireland, because they want to expand their possibilities for creation and the way that they could create. The same thing as when we become galactic and we want to have a rebirth, not on Earth, but of like on Pleiades, is that it's the same thing as like we're, an example of, we are in the Germany, and it has its own history, its own its own sort of realms, in the way that the society sort of shapes the mind and shapes the possibilities for what people in Germany can experience, as in like a career, as in like, their within child raising or education. And when you go to Japan, the only reason why you're going to Japan is because there's something in your consciousness, something seeded in your consciousness. Either you saw a magazine, you watched a documentary, that brought in your awareness and expansion of what you can kind of experience as in realms and dimensions. So you going to Japan is actually taking on the sort of mold of the Japanese karma, the Japanese history, the Japanese Dharma, which is their spiritual practices, which could be vastly different from Germany, right? And why do we do that, right? Why do people go to that drastic change, from the language, from the food, from the spirituality, from the society, from the idea of government and education and women and men? Is because we want to expand the possibility for us to create. Right? When you not only have a German sort of background, which, has its own ideas and belief systems, but now you have a Japanese sort of ideas and belief systems about possibility of what you can create, all that does is bring more knowledge, and even brings more possibility for the way you could create your life, right? So that makes you so innovative, right? You can take the philosophy of Japan and the philosophies of Germany, you could combine them and you could create your own philosophy out of the sort of ingenuity that comes about sort of connecting to two seeming opposite, or two seeming like vastly different philosophies on the way of life. Right? Like think of like the Catholic and the Buddhist, and having both of them within your Satric record. That's going to make you well-rounded. That's going to make you more adaptable, more of like a chameleon in the way that you can understand. You can understand information. You can kind of connect vastly different information together, right? In a sort of singularity, right? So I think when we do that on Earth, right, through reincarnation, like in one lifetime, I'm like a French woman, another lifetime, I'm like Anglo-Saxon man, another lifetime, I'm a Japanese woman, right? We play all these different kind of like incarnations in these different places as we expand and become more courageous and become more focused on knowledge and gaining, on wisdom from different possibilities of ourselves. We start to expedite not only our growth, right? Because we can reincarnate into the same family, right? Let's say I could be my great grandmother, and then I could also keep reincarnating into the same family, right? And if nobody is expanding and nobody's going outside of the family like conditioning or belief system or attachments or karma, and just keeping the karma going, that's not really going to help me as a soul. I'm just going to be basically just repeating the same possibilities, the same karma, right? Unless somebody within the family that I keep reincarnating into expands and makes a huge karmic resolution in the way that they move to a completely different city in a completely different country and successfully establishes a whole different reality, and I'm born into that whole different reality, that is when you're going to see a major sort of possibility open up for the way to think, feel, and say. But a lot of times we don't just do that. We don't just reincarnate with the family that we have right now, right? As like this bloodline. A lot of times we'll go into other different bloodlines, other different lineages, right? We'll earn a sort of merit to get into a body when we have a rebirth, like that is in the Middle East or in Germany or in Africa, right? And as we start to raise our vibration and get out the karma wheel and start to focus on the Dharma, right? The deathless, type of experience where we start to gain character and gain courage and creativity through our sort of determination, right? Our will, we'll just say that. We start to kind of earn merit to be able to have a rebirth in bodies, within lineages, within bloodlines that may have access to even greater knowledge, right? Knowledge that can, like a culture or an ideology or spirituality or, a society type of, right? And we want to have a birth in that through the mother and father that we've kind of chosen, right? Because we want to have that experience, right? We want to be in that realm with that mother and with that father, because the mother and father have created a particular realm, right? Through their connection or, through just their individual paths joining together, that is going to be suitable for us and where we want to go based on our intention as a soul, right? Maybe the mother, maybe the father have in their sattvic records some kind of divinity practice or sort of like mastery, or they have some kind of karma that is suitable for the karma that we are wanting to clear, or the karma that we're wanting to work on, or the karma that we're needing to cross through in order to get to another side or another phase of energy. So we choose that mother, we choose that father in the rebirth. So very, very interesting stuff. So, becoming a cosmic being, and I see it kind of in the Buddhist way of the pathway of enlightenment towards the nirvana, getting out of the karma wheel entirely. Like, I see it as the focusing on the Dharma, right? You simplifying it, is the Dharma, right? And this is like phase one, I feel like, to be a cosmic being, to be able to release, because when you become like a Pleiadian, let's say you're human and you become a Pleiadian type of thing, you have to release everything that you carry with you from Earth. You can't have the Earth karma and go to Pleiades. You have to resolve all of that within your mind, right? All of that. You have to have no sense of karmic attachment or debt, right, with Earth. And you have to play that out and resolve that karma until you have reached a point where you feel sincerely that you have reached a resolution. And then, you have to have a Dharma. You have to work on that Dharma through, it could just be your creativity. It could just be you studying. You studying divinity and sincerely having an intention to develop your higher mind. There's so many pathways, right? Christ, the Buddha, I mean, white buffalo woman, there's so many ways, paths. That's the fortunate thing about, being able to, like, reach the nirvana. There are many pathways there are many cultures, either, Cherokee Indian or Japanese or, German, that have vastly different, maybe, spiritualities, right? But they've all have the potential to reach that nirvana and to completely, like, step into the Dharma and graduate and have a rebirth as, like, a Pleiadian or an Arcturian. So I think the Dharma is like light workers. Like, a lot of light workers on this planet at this time are basically beings that have a pretty expansive esoteric record, because they're not only earth, they're not just knowledge of earth and wisdom of the earth, right, through many lifetimes, millions of lifetimes, trillions of lifetimes type of thing, trillions of years, I will say. They're also functioning within a complete, like, resume that is not even associated with what is offered on earth, as in, like, realms and dimensions. And they're carrying that divinity that comes from these other origins, right? And the divinity seeming so different or so strange to earth, because maybe earth has never been introduced to that kind of configuration of divinity, right? Because earth, it has its possibilities, realms are realms. But as you sort of introduce more, like, ways of organizing and delivering the idea of divinity based off of, like, humans, who are here as a light worker, that were actually Pleiadians in previous lifetimes, incarnations, that they come directly from a 15th dimension, an Arcturus, and come into a third dimension. That's huge energy download. And, Earth, for it to be able to hold that, for there to be bodies, human bodies, that can hold a fifth dimensional concept of divinity or consciousness of evolution in the physical body, that means that Earth has reached the whole biology, the DNA, RNA of human in previous times or future times, has had civilizations that was able to vibrate into the cosmos and hold and contain higher, like, fifth dimensional consciousness, because the body can only hold what it can hold, right? It's just like God only gives you what you can handle. So if our body cannot handle fifth dimensional consciousness, then our body would just kind of collapse, right? It wouldn't fit. It's like, species of animals cannot procreate with each other. It's not possible. Like a dog and a cat. It's not possible. So the reason why there are human beings like Buddhas or something, or, Nikola Tesla or Edgar Cayce, who had a consciousness that was higher than what is seeming possible on the realms and dimensions, is because the human body, the human mind, in whatever civilizations of past or future, was able to master the higher mind enough so for the human to have the possibility to actually hold and contain, like, an imagination or a wonder or a psychic, development of, like, a Pleiadian 11th dimensional being. And that means that we as Earth, this is evidence that we as Earth have had a civilization where we were in interaction with Pleiadians, with Arcturians on Earth, in an actual civilization that wasn't just ESP, connecting, but also was an actual, we developed the ESP, but we've also developed some of the divinity of these different streams of consciousness, like Pleiades and Arcturus. It's just an example, Orion. So it's evidence, because we have such an open channel to some of these places, regions in our space, and because there are humans who can actually like anchor and download the consciousness of these different planetary systems, that means that we've definitely had a civilization, ancestors that actually were able to that had an interstellar consciousness, that were interacting with these different planetary beings, these different, galactic beings, right? Because if we, again, God only gives you what you can handle, so we evidently can handle, Pleiadian 11 dimension consciousness, because of our ancestors have carved the way, because they did the work. There's a civilization on this planet that did the work for us to be able to have a direct line if we so choose, right? It's like, in order to get the signal, when you think of like telephone, right, is you have to create a telephone wire from this place, this city to that city, to get that whole connection so that we can dial to all the cities. And I think that's what we did. We did like a telephone wire to all these geographic regions, and the ESP is like okay, I'm going to dial in Pleiades, right, through the telephone wire type of thing. And then the Arcturus, and, maybe Orion, even deeper space than that, right? Or, the Andromedan, galaxy, right? And I like telephone wires, why we're able to all kind of, well, we don't really use, house phones anymore. We have wireless, but the only way you could really get to somebody in a town is you had to have that telephone wire. And the more different telephone wires you had in different towns or cities, the more you could get the signals out, and people could connect with people from all different areas, all different towns. The same thing with galactics. Our ancestors have created telephone wires vibe to these different places, these different galactic geographic regions. So, okay, let's say, you're listening to this and you're like, okay, it would be exciting to like expand and maybe not have a rebirth on Earth, right? And maybe have a rebirth like in another galactic geographic region. I think it has a lot to do with you in this lifetime. So getting out of the karma wheel, working on your Dharma, which is, your wisdom of this human life, right? Through consciousness, awareness, meditation, yoga, these type of things, art, creativity, working on your character, working on your courage, right? And we spend millions of lifetimes doing this. It's not one lifetime of courage. It's like seeming like a hit on the head type of like again and again, right? to really get it strong in us, character and courage and creativity, so that when we come into this life, we come in running, not scared, and not like having all this karmic debt that we are not feeling too good about, right? And working on that, right? Because we are eternal beings, so there really is no rush. But the more that we do get into the karma, the deeper we get into it, and the deeper the more effort it takes to get out of it, right? But effort, if you have the higher energy, if you have the meditation, you can get out of it, because meditation gives you like, I'd say 60 times more energy than what you have already. So you could use that to make the effort to get out of anything that you feel is not helping you or something. So, not helping you to see your Dharma, or see, the connection we all have with each other, right? When we don't see the connection we have with each other, we become very arrogant, selfish. We become, I don't care that I've affected this person, I just want to safeguard myself, and not realizing that hurting of that person now has created some kind of guilt inside of you that ripples out into, now you block yourself from something in your life because you feel, oh, I'm not deserving of it. because deep down inside I hurt this person that I didn't have to, but I did because I was very arrogant. I didn't see self in other. I didn't recognize the connection we all are. So there's that. And you know, again, meditation gives you 60 times more energy. That can definitely expedite your effort, your growth in a single lifetime. Can get a lot done with 60 times more energy in this life. You can clear lifetimes of karma with that, okay? I mean, and that builds up too as you do more of the meditation. It builds up every day, every hour, week, okay? And then there's the Dharma. That's your creativity. That's your niche. That's your soul embodiment, right? That's the fearless out of the deathless, right? The deathless is like, okay, I am going to die. That's just how it is. So the fearless is like, okay, I'm going to, I don't know when I'm going to die, so I'm going to just create moments that are so creatively fulfilling for my consciousness and for my higher mind. Either I'm reading a book, writing a book, listening to a podcast, making jewelry, making art, whatever it is, that's my niche. You know, that's my craftsmanship is what I call it. It's, you know, working on your craftsmanship, because when you die, right, it's like the God or the angels give you a life review and they basically present you your craftsmanship. Your craftsmanship can just be like you're a really good like parent, right? But in the way that you have helped level up the whole bloodline through your parenting, that is also that's a gift, right? So it's not just something like you're making something physical, but it can be, but you'll be presented your craftsmanship, you'll be presented your Dharma, and also how that Dharma helped you to clear your karma, right? When you're more in this path of like you're dying in a state of fulfillment. When you're dying in a state of like unfulfillment, you're probably just going to be presented all of your karma, and then the angels, the guides are just going to like present you option, which is to have a rebirth and reincarnate, or spend time in what I call limbo, right, which is in between, to kind of gain healing energy to then come back to earth and, you know, satisfy your soul, right? Because your soul, that's why it's absolutely important you're listening to your soul, because when you die, all it is, the question is, did I satisfy my soul? Did I listen to my soul? Did I obey my soul? Did I do what my soul was asking me to do? And if the question is no, like, you know, you die and your ego is dead completely, you shed your ego, and it's probably painful, right? Because you got so attached to your ego, right? You didn't sort of mediate that thing. And then when your ego's completely like separated, and, you know, as you rise and go into, you know, the life review type of, you know, period in your death phase, you know, all you have is your soul. I mean, you can have your ego and be attached to it and sort of gripping onto it like a ghost. But eventually you got to release the ghost. I mean, the ghost will eventually transform, right? You could be a ghost. Hell, you can go into a hell being. But that's all impermanence, all of the karmic wheel. I'm talking about you getting out of the karma wheel, right? When you're in the karma wheel and you die, you basically just recycle as a ghost or a hell being, or, you know, as a human or animal or whatever it is, right? An angel. But that you're still in the karma wheel. When you leave it entirely, you have a life review that is outside of hell and heaven. That's where you're with source energy. You're with the Holy Spirit. You're not with just angel or going to hell or whatever, or the higher, lower vibrations that is still bound on earth. You're not bound on earth. This life review I'm talking about, you're not bound on earth. You're in a period where you're presented with cosmic beings. And when people die, a lot of people die and they don't even see these cosmic beings because they haven't developed enough of the merit or the karma or the Dharma to be able to get to that place where they're not earthbound, right? Where they're in a space like a huge alchemical blue ether transformative space, right? like almost like I see it like a what do you call, a station, like a railroad station. We got all these different trains, you know, going by, and it's like it's like a galactic railroad station, and you got all of these portals, these different galaxies that are all swirling around you, and you're inside a fifth dimension where you can see into these different galaxies, these different, you know, constellations, as though you're looking into a window and you're seeing into a solar system. And you get to feel, because you have developed your psychic awareness, you can feel that civilization here, you can feel that civilization here, you can feel that civilization here, and all of the kind of possibilities of what you could experience if you took on an avatar as a Zeta being or something like that. But, you know, we don't just decide, oh, I'm gonna be a Zeta being. You also have to have the karma to match that. You have to change, say, you have to shape yourself so that you can fit that. So for me, I don't know if I would be a Zeta being, because I'm, you know, not synchronized with the intelligence of a Zeta being. I would have to reshape my intelligence through maybe a process of doing that to become a Zeta being. But I can connect with a Zeta being through singularity, but I don't know if I could become a Zeta being, like my consciousness, right? I would have to shift and change some things, alter. But my constitutional blueprint, which is my soul embodiment, which is my unique sort of cosmic being and unique configuration of energy, would be more suited for like a Pleiadian or a feline being, a Sirian, a Lyran, because like my consciousness has a sort of, it kind of fits more naturally in the state that it is in right now with a Pleiadian, right? I wouldn't have to alter, right? I wouldn't have to alter my consciousness so much to take on the avatar in my next incarnation of a Pleiadian. You know what I'm saying? Because in this lifetime on Earth, I already was receiving the Pleiadian like seed, and I was already growing that consciousness of the human, but also the Pleiadian kind of creative renaissance, right? Because I'm highly creative in a more emotional way, that would make me more like natural kind of synchronization with a Pleiadian, because they are also very emotionally creative. But like a Zeta being, I would have to like become more intellectual, read, and maybe less emotional, because their renaissance is more about like an intellectual, scientific type of metaphysical, you know, society, right? And they have their own unique signature that maybe me and who I am right now in this unique configuration of energy in my consciousness, it would have to adapt maybe a little, or it would have to adapt significantly. It's almost like you're a Pleiadian and you reincarnate as a Draconian. There's so much of a difference in the consciousness, in the way that the energy is organized and delivered from a Pleiadian versus a Draconian, that you would have to adapt significantly, and you would have to go through that transformation, and it probably would not be easy. You know, birth can be very painful. And painful not as in like, you know, like, you know, you feel like you're in hell, but painful as in like, you have to go through very intense reshaping of who you are, right? You know, that's why we as human beings, I can't change my face, because that would be so painful. Like, let's say I wanted to change my eyes from black to blue or something. That would be probably painful, because I, in my humanness, don't have that kind of intensity. Like, I'm not adapted to that kind of intensity, right? You know what I'm saying? That's what you're doing. You're taking your blueprint that's basically has a unique configuration, is organized and delivered in a certain way based on your incarnations and your choices, karma, dharma, and liberation. And if that planet doesn't match it, you would either have, you cannot reincarnate on that planet, right? Like Pleiadians, you can't just say I want to be Pleiadian and reincarnate there. You have to have the signature match. So that means you have to create that within your own adaptation and awareness and wisdom, right? Which is possible, right? But you can do that on any planet you're on. Like, let's say you're Draconian and you want to reincarnate as on a different planetary system. You can, but you have to, on that planet, in that whatever density or that planetary sort of bound, reality, right, contained reality, right, that you recycle in as a Draconian, you would have to somehow create a breakthrough in your mind, in your higher mind, where you're now starting to shape consciously in your mind like you want to be a Zeta being. And you would have to constantly shape that in your mind as a Draconian to build a bridge and then cross that bridge when you die into the Zeta. So basically, if we want to become the cosmic being in our next lifetimes, is that we have to create bridges to these places. And then we have to walk those bridges into the unknown when we die. And you have to carry only with you the divinity and the divinity teachings. And it's very daunting. Imagine like Interstellar, like you're going through a black hole. And, you don't know if this black hole is going to lead you to like a trap, or it's going to lead you to like your death, or it's scary. And the only thing you have with you is just your knowledge of Cosmo and how Cosmo work. You just have knowledge, okay, that there's a planetary system, there's a probability for life based off of the science that we've received from that planet. Right? So it's almost like you're going into a black hole and you're presented so many galaxies, so many systems, so much consciousness, so much energy, it's all swirling around you. And you only have your divinity to be able to decide where to go when you're presented with so much. Your divinity is your ESP. Your divinity is how you're able to file through all of that and decide, okay, I'm in resonance with this area of the universe, or this planet, or this, Pleiadian or reptilian or draconian, I don't know, right? And it's like going to the library. You go to the library with intention. If you have no intention, you're just going to be in the library for hours and hours and just still not know what you're doing or what you want. So it has a lot to do with your intention, but also your will. Like, it takes will to complete a 1,000-page book. So it's not just about getting the information, but having the will to actually utilize it. So we could go in the library and we could, my intention is to get a metaphysical book. You get it, you find it. It's organized, it's delivered, you have help, you have a guide that shows you the way, right? As there's always guides that help you to navigate the library. And then what happens is you have to have now the will to read not only the information in that book and sort of understand, and maybe read it twice to fully understand, or maybe read it lifetimes. If you really don't understand, or if you don't even know the language, then you got to learn the language first before you can read it. And then you also have to have the will to be able to do something about it, to apply it to your life or your mind. Right? Because when you die, it's just really your mind is all that you are. Your body is nothing. And when all you have is a mind, when you have a really expansive, imaginative, wondrous mind, right? You can create any sort of like body, right? Your light body, we'll say that, right? When when your mind is in the higher mind of like the Holy Spirit, as an example, which is the source energy, right? I call it the source energy, with every planetary system, every being, and all of the beings of all the beings is all in one big singularity that is the Holy Spirit. They all kind of are born out of the Holy Spirit, right? And when you sort of, in your avatar, human, you pray to the Holy Spirit, you pray to connect to that singularity, that point which everything is kind of goes back to when it's in its pure state of complete balance, of complete where, you know, the whole start and end kind of comes into one point. The start and end comes into one point where you are just this infinite being, but you're not separated from all that infinity. You are completely like in sync. You're one with all of that infinity that you've maybe ever experienced, as in like reincarnation and planets and avatars in your whole eternity, which could be light years upon light years upon light years, right? So, right, you know, why there's so much Pleiadians, Arcturian, you know, starseeds that are here on Earth at this time, who have chose to basically reconfigure their consciousness to match the consciousness level of humanity at this time, and to kind of adapt their energy somewhat to fit into a human aura or human body, right? So that they can slowly sort of change the human body, the human aura, the human mind to be more in match with, you know, their star being, you know, higher mind, right? There are humans who have matched their mind with their Pleiadian origin because of their work, their effort, their will, their ability to use the information and do something with it. They've adapted their entire body to be in complete match with their Pleiadian remembrance, right? As an example. And there are people, humans, who are doing that and who have done that. And they are here now. They couldn't be here in the Dark Age. Some of these star beings couldn't even come here in the Dark Age because it was such a big leap. They just couldn't make it. You know, it was they would have to adapt and change too much, that to the point where it would maybe distort their original consciousness, their original blueprint, right, for coming to Earth. So some star beings had to wait until humanity was at a certain point where the mind could be adapted into the mind of these star beings, right? They could alter the mind. But there are certain points as humans where they can't, because the mind is not easy. It takes a lot of effort, and it's too much of a leap. So they would rather wait until human naturally evolves its mind so it's more suitable for this kind of like download, or this kind of like reconfiguration that they want to do to the human mind when the star beings kind of come to Earth and incarnate from Pleiades or something. And the reason they're here now is because humanity has a mind. There's a lot of star beings here now. Human beings have the mind where it is gotten to a certain point of evolution, mostly due to technology, that the human mind is now able to be like massively reconfigured to match those of star beings of like Arcturian or Pleiadian origins. It is the human mind is actually can make that leap, but before it could not. The mind would collapse. The mind couldn't hold it. It couldn't sustain it. It couldn't contain that. The human mind just couldn't. So that is why there's light workers here in the form of star beings. And the reason that they're here is they're holding frequencies of their origins, right, of where they've come from, as a way to sort of revive a civilization that is galactic. They're here to help humanity transition into the galactic remembrance, right? Which has to do with, if there are humans on this planet who can channel Pleiades, who have a mind who is in like a calibration of like a Pleiadian mind, or Pleiadian divinity, spirituality, sexuality, culture-wise, artistry-wise, Renaissance-wise, and they anchor that and contain that in the human body and share that, right? what happens is that will create a continuity that will spread ideas and seed new ways of viewing the universe into humans that will revive the civilization in which humans are in awareness of Pleiadian and the Pleiadian consciousness and the reptilian and the Orion and the Sirian and the Lyran, so that eventually all of these, thousands of years from now, all of these possible, dimensions and higher vibrations and cosmic beings can maybe possibly actually sort of have a even more of a community within the human mind, in a way that's tangible, in a way that is reliable, in a way that is contained and is captured within the higher mind of a human, right? Because we've been very earthbound. We've been very, like, some people have been very trapped on earth, just in the karma, and they've not been able to get out of that. But the more that these star beings come to earth and sort of kind of awaken or seed people's consciousness with an idea of expansion beyond the karma wheel, even beyond nirvana, it's going to help people to spiritually grow in the way that they're going to realize, wait a minute, there's more to the karma wheel. Let's get out. And that may, help them to awaken to their galactic footprint. We all have a galactic footprint. It's just when we get trapped in karma wheels on Earth, we very much get stuck in that. So, recognizing your galactic footprint and seeding your own consciousness with artistry and spiritual creative renaissance of a galactic sort of singularity within consciousness. When you remember I call singularity consciousness, right? And you begin to experience that, shape that into this physical reality that you're living in through your prayer, your ritual, your ceremony, your routine, your way of viewing, the way that you live becomes more in a reflection, more of a reflection or a Dharma of your singularity consciousness that has a galactic footprint, that's in awareness of this, these different beings, and you've developed your relationship with these different dimensional beings through your shamanistic type of mind, right? Or your Buddhist mind, or whatever, you want to call it. Your transcendental meditation type of vibe. That's just going to make it more solidified and more anchored in your awareness as a human being. I'm going to step into my galactic footprint. I'm going to step in not only to my human Dharma, like as just, Earth. I'm going to step into the Dharma that has to do with my galactic resume, my galactic Sachic record. Right? And I think that's how we're able to transform, because it's really the mastery of being able to shapeshift. Like I said, let's say, you are German and you want to become a African American. Like, that's just not possible, not in this lifetime, because the pain of transforming your skin, your eyes, your facial feature, your bone structure, it would be too painful, too intense. The human body would die, would collapse. It's not calibrated to handle that much intensity. So that's why, the same thing with the mind. If your human mind, if it's not calibrated to transform and to go through the intensity of completely rewiring itself, your mind will feel like you're losing your mind, or you're going mentally breaking down, because you can't handle the intensity. So that's why we got to work on the transcendental meditation, the yoga, so that you can, when you have the seed of transformation that is very intense, can be even painful if you don't have it in you to go through it, right? That's why we work on that. We spend so many lifetimes, millions of years in many ways, on Earth and other systems, you know, other avatars doing just that again and again and again, because shape-shifting, transforming from like even a deer to like an elk, or from a human to a Pleiadian, you're going to need to have a lot of mastery of energy and knowing how to release everything, all attachments, and fully kind of relax into the complete reconfiguration and sort of transfiguration that happens. You have to relax, and that's why these, you know, beings, Pleiadians, they can shapeshift. And you know, ancient Egyptians, they've had like lucid dreams, or you know, meditations where they themselves were transfigurating, trans-dimensional hopping. Is because of their ability to they calibrated, they've upheld a sort of divinity that allowed them to do that. So I'm just gonna leave you guys with this download. Satnam.